Hey folks, my name is Dan Roberts. You've probably seen me on the channel from time to time. And today we're going to bring you a sort of different experience at Tabletop Talk. We figured that tables are not just good for role-playing, they're good for eating off of as well. So this is for the campaign that I will be running, known as Monster Gourmet. Every week they kill a monster and then eat it. And then we will actually eat whatever it is that they eat in-game. So today we will be making Manticore Loaf. You'll need butter, an onion, this one is minced, some garlic and thyme, ketchup, brown sugar, apple cider vinegar, a couple of eggs, half a cup of milk, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and Tabasco. Your Manticore meat. If Manticore meat is not in season wherever you happen to be right now, then you will be able to substitute a pound of ground beef and a pound of ground pork. Mix them together and it'll work fine. You'll need bread to make breadcrumbs with, and parsley. So I always do my own breadcrumbs, and I consider that to be part of the cooking process. Basically, you take a loaf of like country-style white bread, and you just do like a slice or two at a time. I like the crusts in. I think it doesn't hurt anything. I certainly haven't had any complaints about like little bits of crust in your breadcrumbs. You get it in, and then you just do the thing that you do in the food process. Now I'm going to need about a cup and a half, cup and a third of this. Anyway, you can definitely buy breadcrumbs at the store in breadcrumb form, like you buy them in a can. And they're just not as good. They're sort of dry and they're sort of like stale tasting, and just they don't have the same palate, the same appeal of fresh breadcrumbs from real bread. So I'm going to turn on the stove here. Put it on sort of a medium high, somewhere in there, and I'll slice off about a tablespoon of butter, because we're going to saute these onions before we start assembling our meatloaf. It's going to reduce the harsh bitterness of it, and it will instead bring out that sort of sweet taste that you think of when you think of a cooked onion. You're always going to saute in some sort of a fat, right? Be it butter or vegetable oil or olive oil or grapeseed oil or peanut oil. There's lots of options. So as we saute, as we apply heat to the ingredients, that will cause the cell walls of the onion to break down, releasing all of that good stuff that we're interested in, and it will also denature the proteins in the onion that give it that harshness. I'll tell you for sure, there's not a whole lot in this world I love more than the smell of onions cooking in butter. So you can see these have gone through translucent, and they're now starting to get a little bit brown. That means we're getting real close to where we want to be. This is a combination of minced garlic and minced thyme. The thyme is fresh, it's right out of my garden back there. Herbs are basically just weeds, you can grow them anywhere. So we're going to take these herbs and just whack it. Give this 15 to 30 seconds, just long enough for it to start. You'll get that nose feel of it, right? It'll smell like garlic and thyme. And into your waiting bowl. And so this bowl is ultimately what we're going to use to assemble the whole thing. Mix together all of the wet ingredients here. So 2 eggs, a couple teaspoons of Dijon mustard, do a teaspoon of salt here, and then 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. And grind in some pepper. Finish it off with just a few dashes of Tabasco sauce. So we'll take our Manticore. So there's one sort of meat, and here's another sort of meat. We'll also take our breadcrumbs, our parsley, and our wet ingredients here. And then we mix it all together, going for it. So that's what we'll do here. It'll be a little gross and extremely satisfying all at the same time. So what we've got here, we've basically combined for ourselves The meat itself, the Manticore meat or whatever you're using. So there's, of course, the parsley and the onions, which are there for flavor more than anything else. The breadcrumbs are there as a filler. They bulk it out and make it feel more loafy. The last thing is your binding agent, so that's your eggs. And this should be just about good to go. We are going to do the final steps. We're going to assemble the meatloaf into an actual loaf, and then we'll go ahead and put it in the oven. So I've had the oven preheating to 350 degrees. Now, a lot of times you'll see meatloaf cooked in a loaf pan, like a bread loaf pan. And I do not recommend that. It'll get you with a sort of soggy, gross, ooky meatloaf. Not what you want. You want to get that crisp outer layer, and that means it's got to be exposed to the hot air of the oven. And no more than about 1.5 inches deep, right? And that will allow it to cook through really evenly the whole way without, like, the ends get way done and the middle doesn't get done at all. So we'll start with half a cup of ketchup. So we take the ketchup, brown sugar, and apple cider vinegar. So we've taken ketchup here, which is basically just sugar and vinegar, and added in sugar and vinegar. So it's going to be a very tasty concoction. And just make sure it's all mixed up. And we're going to take about half of it and put it on. We'll do a second layer when it's almost out of the oven. And this will give it that sweet, tangy finish that it is looking for. Okay, so that should be about good to go. I'll take this, slide it right on into that oven. And we'll see the sucker in 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes, we'll take it out, apply that last layer of glaze, and put it back in for another 15 minutes, and I'll get that nice last layer of crisp on the top. And then we take it out, test it with a meat thermometer. We're looking for about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how you know it's cooked through and ready to eat. And then we actually let it rest. We let it sit there for about 20 minutes, and that'll just let all the juices flow and let it be really, really ready to go. And then we dig in and stuff our faces, and it will be great.